So it's starting. So once it on, I can just on. So good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is I'm Dinesh Gajendran from Audacious Dreams Foundation. So we are the host and the partner for this program, and so welcome to national level workshop on research proposal for UGC STRIDE projects preparation and submission protocol. So hosted by JP College of Arts and Science, Oilkudi, Tenkasi District, Tamil Nadu, India, in association with Audacious Dreams Foundation. And we are glad that we have a resource person who is an eminent speaker, who's having well-versed experience of in the research platform, Dr. V. Arulmurugan, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, School of Management, Pondicherry University, Karaikal Campus, Karaikal. And so he's been a well-versed person who's active in the field of research and project preparation, UGC STRIDE projects, and so many more stuff. So he was also a trainer for UGC NetSet activities. So we are glad that to partner with JP College of Arts and Science, Tenkasi. So I like to introduce. So I like to welcome a few people who's been the pillar behind the success of this program. So Administrator Reverend Sister Alangaram, so who's an administrator of JP College of Arts and Science. So I would like to invite Reverend Sister Alangaram to give a welcome note.
Very good evening, sir.
Good evening, ma'am.
Sir, today is the day where God has blessed all of us together, being connected with the technology. Learning never ends. It continues until our death, even after the death. Today, the Department of English has organized this live program webinar. It can be reached more than 500 students. The students, those who are young and energetic in these days, they should not be arrested in the house. Even they are in the house, they have to learn, and the learning never ends. So in this concept, I wish and pray that this program by Dr. Arulmurugan. Sir, good evening. I wish and pray that your health and your programs, whatever you are taking up in your life, in your family, may everyone be blessed by God the Spirit, that your service should enrich and reach the whole humanity. We pray for the success of this program. Wish you all the best, and a very special thanks to Professor Sahaya Shantinisha. It is her initiative which is really a success is going to begin in our JP campus through this input session. I wish and pray and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
So thank you, Reverend Sister Alangaram, the Administrator of JP College of Arts and Science, for giving your opening remarks. And I would like to hand over the session to A. Sagaya Shantinisha, who is the head of the Department of English from JP College of Arts and Science to give welcome speech. Hello, Professor Nisha. No, your voice is not audible, ma'am. Professor Nisha.
Yeah. Good evening to you all. It's my privilege to welcome you all to this national
Ma'am, I think your voice is not audible. Maybe I can go with the next slot. We can go with vote of thanks, and I would like to introduce the resource person will be introduced by Professor Kamala Bharati.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm E. Kamala Bharati, Assistant Professor of English, JP College of Arts and Science. To be inspired is great, but to be an inspiration is an honor. Our resource person, Dr. V. Arulmurugan, is serving as Assistant Professor of Commerce and Placement Coordinator in the School of Management, Pondicherry University. He has 18 years of teaching and research experience in University of Madras, Manoன்மணியம் Sundanar University, and Pondicherry University since 2002. He has graded 14 pre-doctoral research scholars and 82 postgraduate students. He is specialized in commerce science. He is a co-director for ICSS, or Major Research Project on Mapping Growth, Development and Problems of Women Entrepreneurs in Union Territory of Pondicherry. He has received 28 awards and recognition in his credit. 6 times award of Best Teacher Award by Pondicherry University, Best Young Social Scientist International Academic Excellent Award 2000, received from the Vice Chancellor, Manoன்மணியம் Sundanar University. Best NSS Program Officer Award 2020, received from the District Collector, Karaikal, Government of Pondicherry. Professionally qualified in UGC NET JRF in Commerce 2004, UGC NET AFL in Commerce 2002 and 3, UGC NET in Management 2010 by University Grant Commission. Now the session is handed over to our speaker, Dr. V. Arulmurugan.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Kamala Bharati, for your valuable introduction. And I'd like to hand over the session to Dr. V. Arulmurugan for next 1 hour. The session format is, so you'll be giving the presentation for 1 hour, and then later the question answer sessions can be asked. So you'll be the YouTube participants, you can post your questions in your chat box. So we'll take the valid questions and then we'll post to the resource person, Dr. Arulmurugan, and he will answer. There will be like 1 hour of presentation, and next I'll ask 30 minutes to 1 hour of a Q&A session. So it's over to Dr. Arulmurugan.
Is it audible, Dinesh?
Yes, sir. It's audible.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks a lot to thanks a lot to the organizers, especially JP College, the administrator, the management, and Nisha Madam and Dinesh for convening this wonderful what you call it as a workshop on national level, presenting in Zoom as well as YouTube live simultaneously. With this little note, I'll just get into that. Today, the presentation will be on research proposals for UGC STRIDE projects. And that means that the most lucrative area that everybody is looking after is like how to write a research project, how to write a proposal for the research project, and how to get funding. So these are one of the area where all the teachers are getting into. And in my opinion, that writing a research proposal for any funding agency is quite easy. And today we are going to concentrate on only one funding agency, that is UGC, and it has one scheme called as STRIDE. So we are going to be very particular, very crispy, very narrow down, that if anyone is interested to send up a research proposal to UGC STRIDE projects to get their funding from for the colleges and the universities. So we'll move on to the next slide, and the next slide is just a profile of mine where which will explain you that how scientifically I am getting into research and data analysis. Moving on to the introductory slide, next slide. The most important question that everybody used to get is like, what is research proposal, how to write research proposal, and why you need it. So the most important question which we need to understand is that what is research proposal, and number two, why we need it. So this is what I'm planning to discuss today. And if you look into that, the next slide. So what is research proposal? It is a systematic plan to execute a research. So in the sense, like if you want to do any research, and you should have a planning. So ultimately, like unless otherwise we have a plan, it may not be possible for us to execute any kind of research. So research proposal is a systematic blueprint or a plan to execute a research. And moving on to the next slide, why we need research, why we need to prepare a research proposal. The purpose of proposal writing is more important. Whenever we look into this, normally what happens is there are certain purposes why we will be in a position to write or draft what you call it as the research proposal. One is the research degree. So for example, if someone want to acquire undergraduation or post graduation or MPhil or PhD or a postdoctoral degree, research degree, then ultimately like directly we cannot enter into a research. So for that matter, we need to prepare a proposal, and based on the proposal only we can do that research. So one aspect is to acquire a degree. Number two, wherever we are going for a presentation, whether it is a seminar or a conferences or a symposium, if you are going for a presentation and you need to go with a research paper, so whenever you want to go with a research paper, for that you need to do a research. And to do that research, you need to have a plan, and the research proposal will help you for preparing a research paper. And number three is that whenever you want to write any or publish any article in leading reputed journals like CARE journals run by UGC or Scopus or elsewhere or Science Direct or IEEE or EEE or for example ABDC from Australia. So anything, any leading journals, if you want to make it, then ultimately you need to prepare a proposal for preparing that paper. Maybe if you want to even put in your research paper into edited volumes or books or even proceedings, right? So ultimately you need to go ahead, even policy reports. And maybe one more thing is that if you want to organize any seminar, conferences, workshops, faculty development programs, training programs, so ultimately when you look for any funding from funding agency for conducting of programs and events, especially ICSSR gives funding for that. When these fundings are given, ultimately we need to send a proposal for it. If you are sending a proposal, then only they get it sanctioned. So preparing a proposal is very necessary even to acquire funding for the what you call organizing programs and events. And the most important thing which we are dwelling upon today and dealing upon today is the research projects. So whenever you want to do any research, like with the micro at your institutional level or minor or major projects at the national level or an international level, so ultimately you need to prepare a proposal and which has to be sent it to them. Based on that only they will sanction the money. So if that is the case, there are some international level activities also there. There are international level activities also there. For example, World Bank, IMF, UNCTAD, UNO. So these people and a lot of people have, or institutions are giving in the international level, even Commonwealth Fellowship, Fulbright Fellowship. So there are a lot of fellowship comes for research. So whenever you want to send or if you want to do PhD in abroad, ultimately you need to prepare a proposal. The same way to get funding for the projects, like as I just told you, minor or major projects or any specialized schemes, you need to prepare a proposal. So in the sense that proposal writing is not only for projects, but all the research degree to for presentation, for publications, for programs, even for research projects. So ultimately, like these what you call as project proposal has to be prepared. So moving on to the next slide, that with all this introduction, I just want to make sure that the entire presentation next for an hour goes with three dimension. Part one, the dimension one, part one, we are going to understand what is scientific research and approach. Part B, that next part will be, you need to understand what is UGC STRIDE, what kind of funding, who are eligible, and when can apply. So all those details about UGC Stride. And the third part is specifically how to prepare a proposal for UGC Stride and what is the submission protocol online. So these are the three things which we are going to understand. And with that, we will move on to understanding about scientific research and approach. Moving on to the next slide. So what is scientific approach? Whenever you look into the scientific approach, then that means that we need to understand basically, many of us know research. Many of us know research, many of us do research, but what is happening is like, are we really doing scientific research? Even in social sciences, you may wonder that we need to do scientific research if you want to meet out the global standards and what you call as quality that the funding agency is looking for. So any social science field or even in a science field or discipline, that whatever research we are doing it, and ultimately like we need to understand that it should be a scientific nature of research. Then what is scientific research, which we need to understand? That is what is called as researching of information. The most important basic knowledge we have is researching of information is what is called as scientific research. Any information which you are going to research, then it is called a scientific research. Our most important thing is that anything which you are going to find it new, finding new things in your research area, in your project, you have to find new things. Without finding new things, you cannot do any research. And the third thing is that fact-finding process. So most of the research normally should work on finding the facts. So that is more important. It is not that simply you do a research and whatever comes in, you have to say whether it is right or not. But we need to find a reliable and valid fact-finding process in the research. Then only it will be called a scientific research. Even if you have a problem, and many of us doesn't know what is the problem, even like pandemic situation, we don't know what is the problem. Actually, whatever day by day we are getting it, we are trying to mount it, and we are trying to, government is looking after, and every time they are giving the advices based on that, people are following it. So identifying a problem is also a research, and finding a solution. If you are going to find a medicine, or if you are going to find drugs for COVID-19 pandemic disease, then ultimately like it is a solution for it. So finding a solution is also research. Beyond that, whenever research, there are two ways to do. One, the rule of thumb, which we call as the one way how we do our research. But that is not considered to be the scientific research. There is a systematic process. There is a systematic approach is there. There is a systematic format to be followed, protocol to be followed, and then only it is called as scientific methods. In the sense like there is a way in which your idea is generated. There is a way in which the research process is happening. There is a way in which there are models, theories, methods, techniques which are followed. So if you follow scientific method only, then it is called a scientific research. When you want to do scientific research, the idea which you generate should be innovative, should be systematic, and that should be logical into that. And one more thing is that it should be purposive. Without purpose, we cannot do any research, right? And the most important thing is that it should be objective. It should not be subjective. It should be objective. Then only we can do research, and it should not give room for any other discussion on it. And beyond that, it should be accurate. We cannot give approximate data, approximate information in research. And beyond that, it should be replicable. If some research is done in some places, in other places it has to be replicable, and especially in medical sciences, the research is normally replicable. So it should be replicable. With this, if you have this kind of approach and this kind of character, then we can call research as a scientific research. And usually research are two types. One is descriptive research, the other one is analytical research. Excuse me. So when we say descriptive research, that means that if you are going to explain what it is as such, then it is called as descriptive research. Then you are going to put your own perception, your own thinking, your own analysis, the other what you call as the global or standard tools and techniques into a data, into an understanding, into a collection of information. Then it is called as analytical research, or we call it as empirical research. So either a research can be science or a social science. Either it can be a descriptive research, or it can be an analytical research. And whether it is a descriptive or analytical, there's another dimension that it can be a quantitative research and qualitative research. That means that if you are only making a content analysis or web analysis, or the thinking and the perception and the behavior without any numbers, without any numericals, then it is called as qualitative research. If you are using numericals, or if you are converting your perception into numbers, then it is called as qualitative research. Beyond that, what happens is like, beyond all this, there is another important research which is there, which mostly management or medical sciences, psychology, even sociology, commerce, we normally use is called as case study research, case study analysis. So that means that it is like if you are going to study about only one, what you call as only one unit or one institution, one set of people, one company, one set of thinking, then it is called as case study. It depends on the sample. If your sample is only one unit, right, it is called as case study. So with this intro, if you have all these components, like what is scientific research, the characters and the research types, if you're able to understand clearly, then I can tell you that we are doing a scientific research, whether it is science or social science or the global standard. Moving on to the next slide. Moving on to the next slide, Nish. So the other important thing is that till now we have understood scientific research. Now we are going to understand scientific research process. So in my opinion, the scientific research process completes, or it is not completed one, it is a never ending process. But to complete one research, there are 10 steps involved in a research. One is, we'll go one by one, whereby you can understand very clearly. If you are doing your PhD also, it will be helpful. If you are going to prepare a proposal for the funding agency also, it will be applicable, right? So ultimately what happens is like, the 10 steps which you are going to see one by one. Moving on to the next slide. That is the point number one, that which I am going to discuss. Whatever 10 what you call the steps I have shown you, I am going to discuss with you one by one for next few minutes. So one is that defining the research problem. Most important thing which we have in our mind is that whenever we want to do a PhD, whenever we want to apply for any funding agencies or any funded project, ultimately the first question which comes in our mind is, oh God, what is the research area I have to take? What is the what you call it as, what is the title I have to frame, and I don't know how to review. So the most important first step is that you need to answer all these questions. Especially you need to define your research problem. How to define your research problem? And most important thing is that whenever you want to do a research, please make sure that you select an interested area of your choice. Never ever select an area where somebody referred you. For example, your supervisor is referring you, or you are referred by somebody. No, but ultimately, if you want to do an independent research, so ultimately you need to what you call it as, find out an interested area in your domain. If it is sociology, what is your area? If it is education, what is your area? If it is communication, what is your area? If it is English literature, what is your area? So, for example, in English literature, there are so many research areas you have. The style in which some authors write, this is what the most research people do. But beyond that, English literature, we can always go back and see that how far each literature has its own connectivity. There are a lot of researches required, how English and Tamil or any other regional languages in India are connected, and how far, what is their what you call as the interaction between that, and how far English literature can be used in the pedagogy. So these are some of the areas where you can work on, you can think of. Whenever you are thinking of this interested area of choice, then you have to generate an idea. The next step is that you have to generate an idea. When you generate an idea, it is not easy. It will not come automatically. For someone, it will come. For somebody, it may not be. So in that case, what happens, there are two methods which I have identified. One is called as idea-based review model. The other one is review-based idea model. The first one is like you generate an idea, then you go to find out from an expert that idea whether I can do a research or not, or you can meet your own colleagues, or you can Google Scholar on any database, go for a research article, and ultimately you can find out whether this idea can be researched. And the next thing is that review-based idea. If you are blank, you are not aware of any research ideas, then ultimately what you need to do is like you review it. You go for reviewing of articles from a research, from a leading databases, from the library. So you just review the articles, and when you review it, ultimately any article, maybe there are a lot of databases from the 1930s, 1940s, 50s, 60s, and all, you have articles which the author has written or researchers has done a lot of work on it. So if that is the case, what you can do is like you can review it, and once you start reviewing, you will get an idea. But it is not easy. For example, if you read one article, you will not get an idea. If you get an idea, then it will be more or less same. So what you have to do is you have to collect research articles, For example, idea-based review or review-based idea. End of the day, you'll be landing up with 20, 30 articles which are highly relevant to your idea, right? Once it is there, then in an Excel format, you have to prepare a statement. Maybe in the statement, you should have title, you should have a researcher name, you should have year, you should have objectives of that researcher, an article, then you should have a methodology, what they have followed, what is the analysis they have followed, what is the findings they have, and what are the suggestions they have made it. And the most important thing is what conclusion they have given. And another thing is that agenda for future research. So if you look all this in a nutshell, for example, 30 articles with all these 8 details, when you look in, if you make a content analysis and if you look into properly, then you can identify your research gap. So where there is research required, that is what is called as research gap. Once you know that where the research is there, then ultimately you can take it and you can frame a title of your research. Whenever you are framing a title of your research, make sure that the research variable should be in the title, not the sample, which is a new norm for global research. So 1 second. So new norm for global research. So ultimately what happens is, like, when you find a research gap, then you can frame the title of the research. It is very simple, like what do you call it as? Like it is like an English statement. That's what. One statement with 5 to 6 letters. 5 to 6 words, and which can give you a topic. For example, we'll try to figure out an idea. Like we have a pandemic situation now, right? We have a pandemic situation, and the COVID-19 is affecting all the walk of life, business, government, interaction between the countries. If you look in all the situation now, as our administrator was saying that, when we look into the students' interaction, so now we have a what you call as breakup between the teacher-students relationship. So how to make it? Only thing is the technology. So technology intervention, student-teacher learning. So whereby we can understand. So ultimately we can find out. So technology-based learning. So that is one research variable, and student-teacher relationship is another research variable. So 2 variable we can coin a title. So the technology-based education for technology-based learning, TBL, technology-based learning for student-teacher relationship, STR, TBL and STR. So 2 different research variables we are going to connect it, so we can understand that how far technology-oriented or technology-oriented learning or technology-oriented teaching is going to help the student-teacher relationship to maintain. For example, we have online classes nowadays, but still there are people who are unaffordable, who are we need to consider that also in your research. So if you look in 360 degree of this idea, then I should go and dig out any review is there on technology-based teaching and learning, whether any review is there on what you call as the student-teacher relationship. All those things, if you collect, then we can frame it a title, right? I think now with this case, we'll discuss further. So with this, so once we have finalized the title, then we have to go for the second step. Moving on to the second slide, sir. So slide number 11. So the second step is that drafting the objectives and hypothesis. So once your title is finalized, your title is the major research question, and that major research question which you need to answer, whether student-teacher relationship is enhanced because of technology-oriented teaching and learning, or what is the condition we need to say. If that is the case, then we need to draft down the objectives. For example, objectives are the macro research questions. That means if you split up your title, you will get your objectives. For example, what are the objectives we can have? Normally 3 to 5 objectives we can have in general. And there is a format for writing an objective. Most of you may know it: to study, to analyze, to describe, and to elucidate or to determine. So ultimately those things are there. When we look into this, what happens is like maybe we can frame, for example, we can frame with the same topic to study the technology-oriented teaching and learning process, to analyze the student-teacher relationship. The third one, to find out the efficacy or efficiency of student-teacher relationship on technology-oriented learning and teaching. So ultimately 3 objectives we have got it now. So once the objectives are ready, then we have to go for framing the hypothesis. How to frame the hypothesis, which we need to understand. Each hypothesis can be framed for each objective, minimum 1 hypothesis, because Every question will have an answer. For example, in the beginning, you may thought that whether Dr. Arul Murugan will speak sense or not. Maybe you may have an apprehension. Somebody will think, oh, he will speak. No, 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 he may not speak. So there are two alternative answers you have. So the same way in the objectives, there are answers. It may be effective. Student-teacher relationship may be much effective when you go for online teaching than the traditional way. It may happen. So you want to find out what is that. So ultimately, we need to, because hypotheses are predetermined research answers, which we are going to make it. And probably hypothesis is not mandatory, but if it is there, it will be good for you. So one thing is that write down the objectives. If it is sequentially arranged, you can logically arrange it. Once the 3 to 5 objectives ready, then each objective you can frame 1 or 2 hypotheses to check it out. Because you want to know, you may have an hypothesis whether the technology oriented teaching and learning influences or has an association with the student teacher relationship, or whether it has any differences with the student with the teacher, whether teacher and student has a difference of opinion. So such kind of hypotheses we can build, and which has to be analyzed in our research. So we have found out the research problem and the title. Then we have drafted the hypothesis, sorry, objectives and hypotheses. And the third step is more important, the methodology. Moving on to the next slide, sir. So methodology, when you look into the methodology, two things are more important in a scientific way. Whenever we do any research, the methodology part is more important. Even the funding agencies, the authorities, or the experts will look into your methodology, whether if your methodology is clear, right? What is methodology? It's the way in which you are going to do your research. If your methodology is clear, getting sanction of your project is easy. So when you look into this, there are certain things which you need to understand. One is, what is the type of study? Already we have discussed, no, whether it is descriptive research or an empirical research or analytical research, we need to mention. And number two, what is the data sources? Whether you are going to use primary data or secondary data. So those data which are already published, which is existing with the agencies, which is existing with the authenticated institution, then it is called as secondary data. But there are sometimes you may not get it in some disciplines, you may not get a secondary data, or even if you get it, you need to access the primary data. So first-hand information. That, for example, in this case also, if you want to study student-teacher relationship, either you should go and ask the student or you should go and ask the teacher. So ultimately, you need to collect primary data. So when you want to collect the primary data, then you need to go for a primary survey. When you want to go for a primary survey, you need to understand who is your population. In our study, the population is the student, teacher, even if you want to access the parents, because school students, normally what happens, the parents also get what you call as involved in online teaching nowadays. That's what a recent article also says that. Sometimes a student become victimized because of the parents' intervention in online classes. A recent article shows that. So ultimately, what happens is like who is the population and who is your sample. Whether you are going to restrict this study only with the teacher or you are going to restrict this study only with the students. See, I am giving a case and we are explaining it. Depending on your discipline, you can connect any cases, okay, any research ideas, and you can think of. So more practically, I'm telling you rather than theoretically. And the other thing is that sample size, how much sample size you have to decide, then sample location. So where that samples are there, because it is online, maybe if it's a JP college, then you can access the study with your faculties and what you call as the students in it. And the sampling technique is more important. How I am going to choose people? There are two techniques which are there. One is probability technique and another one is non-probability technique. For example, when you know the population, that the entire population, you know it, you can access them. That is what, if you are able to access them, then it is known population. And the entire list, if you have it, there you need to apply probability sampling techniques. When it is population is unknown, where I may not know it. For example, if you want to know online teaching and learning from the students, you are not restricted to any institution, then population is unknown, right? Any students you can take it. So in that case, when you say probability, if you know the population, for example, if you have 100 students, if you want to access, or 200 students, if you want to access, especially people in YouTube, right? So 200 students, if you want to access, then ultimately what happens is like, if you have a list of students, right? Among that, you can select 200, any 200 students from your list of students. If you have that, then ultimately it is called as simple random sampling, which is a probability sampling because a population is known. If you are going to select nth number, 1, 10, 20, 30, like certain purpose, if you keep it, certain judgment if you keep it, and if you collect it, then it is called as systematic sampling. Maybe you can group into departments, 3 or 4 departments, and if you select 50, 50, 50 from 4 departments, you will get 200. Then it is called as stratified random sampling, strata. Parallelly, in what you call it as in the other hand, in non-probability also we have equal. When you maintain the simple random, if it is there, it is called as convenience sampling. When you have a systematic, here it is called as judgment sampling. When you say that stratified, here it is called as cluster or quota sampling. So these are the popular sampling type. If you know the population, use probability sampling. If you don't know the population, use non-probability sampling. But there is one thing called as multi-stage sampling. You can use n number, 3 stage, 4 stage. You can use any technique and you can do it depending on your what you call as comfortability of the thing. And another important thing which you need to understand is that most important thing is that what you have to understand is the snowball sampling, a new kind of sampling which has come in very recently. I have been explaining this in many platforms, many FTPs, that online FTPs too. Snowball sampling works out in a better way. Snowball sampling is a non-probability sampling, but in certain cases it has to be. For example, if you want to know somebody who is having an AIDS, that we may not know it. So if you find one person, they'll say another person in the same way. People who smoke, you may not know how many people are smoking. If you get into one person, you can get into other person. The same way, like in this pandemic situation, government is following snowball sampling, because if you know anybody who got the virus attack, anybody who has got virus attack, and we don't know who has got, all are asymptomatic. So if you find one person, if you follow the history, you find another person, another person. So that is what snowball sampling is, because a snowball, for example, in Himalaya, it rounds out, stays in another, it will move on, it will stay and it will move on. And again, the other will stay. It is called as snowball sampling. And once your what you call as sampling is ready, then you need to go for data collection tool. When you say data collection tool, ultimately there are two tools which normally use it. One is questionnaire, the other one is interview schedule. So questionnaire, which we normally use it, is like what is the questionnaire normally? So you have a title, you have objectives. For example, 3 objectives. If you convert 3 objectives in 10 questions, for example, approximately 30 questions, you will get it. And if you put that 30 questions in a paper, in a statement, data collection tool statement, then it will become an interview schedule or a questionnaire. If your researcher is going to what you call it as, give it to the respondent, if the respondent is filling it, then it is called as questionnaire. And if the researcher is going to fill it by asking the interviewer, then it is called as interview schedule. In the data collection tool, there may be scaled data, unscaled data. For example, unscaled, if you have 2 options, yes or no, or multiple choices, it is called as unscaled. Scaled data, for example, Likert scaling is used, Goodman scaling is used. For example, highly agree to highly disagree, high to low. So any scaling which can be used. So 5-point scale, 3-point scale, 11-point scale. If you want to have more accuracy, you can use 11-point scale, 13-point scale also, if you are able to quantify the information. Once your data collection tool is ready, then ultimately the pilot study has to be conducted. That is more important. You have to conduct the pilot study. That is more important, because you cannot directly go to any research. So because to verify the validity and reliability of your data collection tool, that you have to conduct a pilot study and you have to make an analysis, and you can easily find out whether these scales are what you call as good by using reliability analysis. In SPSS it has come. Even you can go for content validity and reliability analysis with SPSS will be the best thing. And once this is ready, then you can go for data collection. The 4th step is to go for data collection. Once you collected the data, collection of data can be in any means. Nowadays we use what you call as the outdated in-person, nobody is going now. Maybe you can use your Google Doc, Google Forms, where you collect the data. That is what in the feedback form also you'll be collecting it, the data, how the session, what all those things you will be collecting it once the program is over. And the data has to be collected. Once the data is collected, nowadays we have a software where you feed the data into the software and we can make an analysis. So what are those softwares we have? For example, analytical software, we have SPSS, Amos, Lizaril, Visual PLS, GPower, Grittle, eViews, MATLAB, Vega, or there are so many softwares are available. Depending on your discipline, you can take any statistical software and you can use it. Okay. And beyond that, How to analyze, I will tell you in a nutshell. To understand this data analytics, you should separately attend a workshop in person or in online, whereby you should do your research yourself. This is an area where most of us go commercial, most of us outsource and get it. That is not needed. If you know yourself, you can do. My research. I have done everything with the help of my professor and some of my friends. With the help of them, I did everything. I learned it. I did everything. So that is how it should be. And when you go for the data analytics, there are three data we have. One is the fifth step is data analytics and univariate data, bivariate data, multivariate data. For example, we have selected a case now, no, online teaching and learning and student-teacher relationship, two different variables. So if you take only one research variable, it is called as univariate. Where you can go for percentage analysis, you can go for growth rate analysis. If it is a scaled data, you can go for mean score analysis, and you can go for ranking. And if it is a two variable like online teaching and learning, the other one is student teacher relationship. If you want to know association, right, you want to know whether association exists, then it is an hypothesis, right? If you want to know many difference is there between teacher and what you call a student, then you have a differential analysis. Normally in hypothesis testing we use chi-square test for finding out the association between two variables, and we use t-test or f-test to find out the differences between the groups of on a variable. So that is what we normally do. And if you have a third variable, for example, if you want to identify what are the factors, influences, student-teacher relationship through online learning. So ultimately what happens, there are a number of tools that are available. If you want to understand the influence on it, so multivariate data analytics is there. For example, we do reliability analysis, factor analysis, cluster analysis to group the respondents, discriminant analysis to find out whether the grouped cases are correct. And we have correspondence analysis, multiple correlation analysis, multiple regression analysis to find out which one is influencing what. So ultimately we can find out. And structural equation modeling, if there is an intervention of the third variable, how structural equation modeling can be done. And beyond that, all are working on linear data. You can work out on non-linear data, which I have applied in my own research, which is called as neural network analysis. You can do neural network analysis when your data is non-linear. So these are the analytics which you have to do and which you have to understand. Moving. Yeah. So the sixth important step, moving on to the next slide, sir. The sixth important, yeah, thank you. The sixth important step is report writing. And whenever you want to, after completing the research, simultaneously we need to write the report. And whenever we think about the report, we need to understand the format of the report as well as the principles of writing, which I have given in the slides. So slides will be given to all the participants. I request the organizers to disseminate the slides whereby they can understand much better even after the program. So event, you can have my video and you can have the slides, and ultimately you can understand. The slides can be given to them. So one is format, in the sense like the entire research report has the prefatory items, body of the report, and terminal items. You know that in the prefatory items, you will have your cover page, you will have your what you call it as the ultimately you will be having your content page, list of tables, abbreviations, acknowledgements, certificates, all those. And in the body of report, it should be like some chapters. In my opinion, a good research will have a minimum 5 chapters. Chapter number 1 will talk about the introduction, conceptual clarity or framework of the research idea, which we have been discussing about, and review of literature. Minimum you have to collect previous related reviews, and which can be given in the chapter number 2. And chapter number 3, normally we have research design or methodology. Whatever just now we have discussed in the methodology, those things has to be elaborately written as a report. And chapter 4 is an analysis and discussion. So whatever data we have got, we used statistical tools and we have made an analysis. That reports and findings has to be given there. And usually the analysis has to be objective based. If you have 3 objectives, you can have even 3 chapters. If you want to put it in 1 chapter, you can do it. It is your choice. But if it is an objective based, it is a good research. That's what internationally people look into. And chapter 5, it is a summary of findings, suggestion, and conclusion. So these are the common which we have a format. And the most important is how you write your report matters a lot. How you write your proposal matters a lot. So how to write a research proposal, what are the things you have to keep in mind when you go for writing it. One is the style in which you write. because English literature, people may understand that the way in which each author writes in their cell, they make, I mean, English literature researcher makes a separate study on how Shakespeare's style is in his writing, how what you call as the other people who write and what is their style. The same way we do maintain a style of writing, and the other thing is that clarity. That's more important. Whenever we write in any style, it should be clarity. Whatever we write, as I think I'm speaking with clear words to reach your heart and mind on research. So clarity should be there. And the other one is grammar. Most important thing is that grammar has to be looked into because internationally nowadays grammar is getting diluted because of the social media. But when it goes to report, policy reports, we need to concentrate on the grammar and voice. So the most important thing is whether we need to write in a passive voice or active voice. In my opinion, you have to write it in passive voice, not in an active voice. Then words, what are the words you are using? That should be very clear because that is more important. It should be very clearly written, right? And next one is numericals. Numerals is whenever you are numbering it, it should be properly numbered. If you miss or misquote number, that will spoil the reader's habit. And you should write quotations, and quotations should be properly acknowledged, and you should have. And capitalization. So in the sense where to use the capital letter, where not to use the capital letter, that you should know it. Sorry. And abbreviations. Try to give globally accepted abbreviations. If you are creating your own abbreviations, just now we have created no student-teacher relationship, STR, then you have to brief it in the beginning, right? And online teaching, online teaching and learning, OLT. So that has to be briefed properly. And the presentation of statistical results, tables, charts, graphs, all those things should be clearly mentioned in your report. Is it okay? Moving on the seventh, next slide, sir. Moving on the seventh point, that most important thing is that research never ends with this sixth step. Research is, once it has to be submitted, it has to be evaluated, and it has to be presented. In PhD, we call it as public examination, external examination. So once they evaluate, an expert evaluates it, then only we can understand that research is good. If they say highly commendable or commendable, or if they appreciate, if they pinpoint any problems or gaps in our research. So ultimately, like that works out. And once your research is confirmed, then you should go for a presentation in an open forum, like seminars and conferences. You have to take your research, present there, get the opinions of the people, incorporate it, convert into a research article where a volume of people can see that later, generation by generation. For example, I have seen an article written by Douglas in 1930. We are here in 2020. So whenever we make it, so publication is more important. That is why more importance is given to publication. Still, I am also working on. I am also not much published articles, but still I'm working on. So we need to work on more on publications, either in the form of research article in a journal, or in an edited volume, or in an edited what you call as in a chapter in a book, or a book which UGC recognizes each faculty's contribution as a research. So we need to work on it. And once the publication is over, it is not that our research is over. There will be a lot of feedback will be coming from the readers, and even yourself you can find out some lacuna or limitation or which you could not do in your research. Convert that as another research. That is what is called as future research. So you have to create an agenda on it. So once you complete these 10 steps, then only it is called as scientific research or scientific research process. So once you are clear on this, then you will be comfortable, and you will be comfortable to write a research proposal for any kind of funding agencies. And today we are going to look only one funding agency. Moving on to the next slide to consolidate. So the 10 aspects we have seen, like defining the research problem, drafting of objectives and hypotheses, methodology, data collection, data analytics, report writing, submission for evaluation, presentation, publication, future research. I think now all the participants in Zoom as well as in YouTube Live is very clear. I think I made it very clear that what is a scientific research and how to do it. Once you are clear on this, we need to go for the next one, a scientific research approach. So moving on to the next very important slide. So scientific research approach, that means which an expert has created it. Doing research is fun, please understand. Doing research is always a fun. If you enjoy doing research, you can do research in a better way. So in my opinion, the fun here is, it is a little different what I've conceived from my own professor. When I listening my own professor whom I listened and did my PhD, Professor Ranganathan sir, who is a retired professor from Madras University, and where I did my research in logistics science. So ultimately, like from his input, I have come out with a model called as fun approach. Dr. Bram's fun approach for scientific research. Dr. Bram is myself, Dr. B. Arulmurugan. So what is fun? From reverse will come. N stands for novelty. Any research should be novel. When an idea should be novel. Whenever you want to write a proposal, or if you want to write a research, see, you want to do a research, your idea should be novel. The most important thing is that your research should be novel, new. How it will be new? Entirely new. If you are going to identify or if you are going to work on a new research variable, then it is new. Or if you are going to add one more variable, new variable into a model, then it is new, right? Or if you are going to provide one research perspective into the domain of research knowledge, then it is new. If your research is going to answer these, then it is new. Okay. And utility, U stands for utility. Once your research is new, then you can go for utility. So utility should be for three segments. One is three stakeholders. One is the researcher. It should give a degree or it should give some value to you, value add to you, and project to you. Number two, it should be useful to the society. Whatever we are going to find out in our research should be useful to the society. And the third thing is that it should be useful to the policymaker, our government. So whatever we do research, it has to be submitted and it has to go to the policymakers. Any research which is submitted to UGC, ICSSR, if it is good, if it is a workable model, I think they are taking to the policymakers. And the third important thing is that feasibility. In three dimensions, I'm looking at. One, feasibility of resources. Whatever you are doing it, for example, if you are doing research, you need to get the resources. If you are not going to get the data or resources, then it will take longer period, right? So availability of resources, feasibility of resources, you need to check it out. Other one is feasibility of time. So whenever you want to do any research time frame within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that you have to complete. According to that, you have to plan. And the third important thing is that cost. Every research involves certain expenses, cost, whether it is independent research or so. So whenever there is a cost required, for a degree we spend ourselves, we pay our fees and we spend ourselves. But whenever there is a larger project which involves lakhs and lakhs, then there comes funding agencies, right? If you are a regular faculty working in an institution, which I'm going to tell you who are eligible. So in that case, then you can apply for funding. So funding agencies are ready to give you funding. International funding agencies are there, Indian funding agencies are there. But in that today, most Indian funding agencies is ICSSR and UGC. Today we are going to look only at UGC STRIDE project. So please remember, whenever you get an idea, please remember Dr. Bram's fun approach for scientific research. So with this introduction, moving on to the second segment of our discussion today. So that is what is called as UGC STRIDE project. How to prepare for it. If any individual is interested, any institution is interested, any experts with high quality research knowledge is interested, you have a chance here. We can acquire funding to the tune of 1 crore. To the tune of 1 crore. My dear, please understand. You are an expert researcher to the tune of 5 crore. So funding is ready. Only thing is that whether we are going with a scientific research, applying that fund approach. Don't forget it. Moving on to the next slide deliberately. That this scheme, STRIDE, what is meant by STRIDE? STRIDE stands for Scheme for Transdisciplinary Research for India's Developing Economy. Scheme for Transdisciplinary Research for India's Developing Economy. So that is what is scheme. So that is what is STRIDE. That means here what they look for, any project which is a transdisciplinary in nature. English literature with history, English literature with commerce, English literature with Tamil literature, English literature with some other domain, psychology, English literature with technology. So anything, for example, Prithvi, there is one software which is what you call a Tamil literature software, Prithvi, maybe you can browse it. So ultimately there are so many things which are coming in. So transdisciplinary, and it should help for the developing of the economy. Such kind of nature we are looking for. And again, in UGC is not directly handling this. It is totally handled by Banaras Hindu University. So the coordinating university is Banaras Hindu University, which is totally doing it. And there is a STRIDE operational guidelines available in net. So you can download, you can read it, but I'm going to tell you in a nutshell in next half an hour. Okay. So STRIDE, whenever you want to send your project to STRIDE, you have looked into fun approach. Na? The same way, UGC has come out with some parameters. What they are saying is, our research proposal supposed to be socially relevant, locally need-based. For example, if you are in Tenkasi, it's a new formed district. I was in Tirunelveli for 3.5 years. So ultimately, I understand the culture, I understand the business, I understand the people and everyone there, because it's a wonderful place to live with nature. So especially Tenkasi, Kuchalam, Tirunelveli, and all those southernmost part, Kanyakumari, Nagarkoil. So southernmost part of India, ultimately what you call it as locally need-based. Now it is a new district, right? So when it is a new district, you can submit any proposal to the UGC and get it sanctioned. You can do a wonderful work, submit to the state government of Tamil Nadu, and you will be uploaded for your work. So locally need-based, nationally important. That is more important. Whatever research you are doing it should be local solution, and the model can be implemented elsewhere also. For example, in pandemic situation, Kerala model, or what you call as Tamil Nadu model, and all of the state models, good models are used in different places. So nationally important. And the other one is globally significant. Even our own Indian model is taken to other countries also. For example, lockdown model, which we got it from China. Like in the same way, like we are going for alternative medicine in Tamil Nadu, and which is practiced in other parts of the world also. So especially in pandemic situation. So socially relevant, logically need-based, locally need-based, nationally important, and globally significant. So such things which they are looking for. Moving on to the next slide, sir. So this one is very important, which will give you a basic idea about UGC STRIDE. UGC STRIDE, this scheme comes out with 3 components. UGC STRIDE component 1, UGC component STRIDE 2, UGC STRIDE component 3. And component 1 for institution. Component 1 is for institution. Component 2 and 3 is for individuals. Component 2 is for assistant professor or associate professor in the regular mode. And component 3 is for the expert researcher, probably professors. So expert researchers, which is there. And now who are eligible? The institution which is having the institute, university or colleges, which comes under the section of 2F and 12B status of UGC Act 1956. So if your institution is coming under this, then you have a chance of getting the funding from this scheme, UGC STRIDE. And if it is component 1, they are giving 1 crore, maximum 1 crore for an institution. Please understand, 1 crore for an institution. And the period of project is for 3 years. And if your institution comes under 12B or 2F category, then an institution should nominate one research expert researcher as a coordinator, institution coordinator. On behalf of the institution, the coordinator will send a proposal, okay, and they'll get 1 crore, and it can be given to research scholars, faculties, and students to do research and submit the report, conduct seminars, and everything can be done. And component 2, the maximum UGC is ready to give us is 50 lakhs. If you are going to work individually, or if you are going to work with other, maybe you can have 2 more persons as a team. 1 person as principal investigator, who was called as principal investigator. The other 2 persons can be co-principal investigators. So that is a designation which is given by UGC STRIDE. And you can become a principal investigator. You can get up to 50 lakhs. And you have to do this project for 3 years maximum. Suppose if you or your research team, principal investigation team, is going to collaborate with government agencies, corporates, that is industry, or NGOs, and if they are ready to bear 40% of the total project money, then UGC is ready to give you 1 crore. Please understand, 1 crore. And component 3, it is for the senior researchers, but they should have a institutional collaboration. That means minimum 2 institutions, maximum 4 institutions. That means 4 people from 4 institutions has to join together, and they have to do a research, and they have to send a proposal which is for 5 years, and they are giving up to 5 crores. 5 crores. So that means that these are basic. In this, component 1 is for institution, component 3 is for experts. But mostly who are participants and also in the YouTube live, normally we go with component 2. So I'm going to explain more or less the same, but we are going to concentrate on UGC Stride component 2, which is for the project proposal for individual or group of individual in the category of assistant professor and associate professor in the regular category. Now what is happening, you know, in the first case I told you that you have to find a novel topic. But in this scheme, moving on to the next slide, sir. In this scheme, that UGC has found out their own trust area. Their own trust area. They have identified 12 trust areas: philosophy, history, archaeology and anthropology, psychology, behavioral and cognitive sciences, literature, linguistic and digital humanities, ideology, Indology, Indian languages, English, which comes into that organizing committee, Indian knowledge system, then liberal arts, cultural studies and religious studies, law, education, continuing education, technology enabled education, journalism and mass communication, management and commerce, environment and sustainable development. One more. This is the broad area they have given. But if you are going to do in your own discipline, you can do it, but you should connect to these 12 areas. Any ideas you can generate, right? Any ideas. For example, English literature can work out with the commerce department and find out what is the commerce, how literature helps trading. We can do a study, right? Even Tamil literature can work on Sangha Kalathula, how they were doing what you call it as trading. Appo eppadi vandu what you call it as Varthagam nadandachu. Pumbugar, very nearby Karaikal, which I am working on. So this is what which we need to understand. So in these areas that we need to design our idea is given now. I mean the area is given. Now we need to generate an idea. Moving on to the next slide, sir. So once you know the area, see again I'm telling you, once you log in the site only you will get all these details, or if you have to read the guidelines. So now we got all the details which I'm helping out, because we have recently sent for around 45 lakhs one proposal along with Dr. Shankaran. We have sent it to UGC and we are waiting for the results. So ultimately what is happening is like when we look into the applications are 2. The project proposal application, one is part A and part B. Part A, there you have to mention about investigator profile and co-investigator profile. Part B, you have to mention you have to prepare the project proposal with budget. Let me explain you both very clearly, whereby everybody can use it. When I say, see, maybe in your screen, if you are using a mobile, it may look very what you call as tiny things. Maybe you can put your finger and you can move, whereby you can go and closely see what is that. Okay, that also can be possible. It is with your mobile. So there are 10 things they are asking in this form. One is that they are asking subject area, that in what subject you are going to apply, broad area under that, and they are asking what is the name of the principal investigator, name, sex, date of birth, qualification, the designation, official address, residential address that principal investigator has mentioned. And if you have a co-investigator, co-investigator 1 and 2, the same information has to be given. And in the 5th column, you have to mention about the teaching and research experience of the principal investigator. There is no need to give what you call as the co-investigator. And one more thing I want to tell you, that all the investigators who are going to apply should have a PhD. That is a norm. And publications during last 5 years, maybe research papers, or you have written any books or any chapters in the book. These 2 are very important. So if you have a publication, then you have to mention a name and address of the university or a college. So now you can apply through college itself. If you have that category, there is no need to go to university. Those days we used to, if you are in college, you need to go to university for application. So if you are in university, you have to get signature from the registrar, forwarding signature. And if you are in college, you have to get it from your principal. That is enough. So, and the 8th one is that they'll be asking whether you have received any what do you call as funding agencies, how many funding agencies you have got, when you started, when you completed, what is the total amount, whether you have any equipment. And the other thing is that they'll be asking you that whether your department or the center or the research center has or college has any equipments or any other infrastructure facilities comfortably to do the research. And most important thing is that the 10th one is any other information. Don't leave it. Write some 100 words on it. Write some 100 words on the research capability of the principal investigator. That you have to write. When you abroad visit for research, presentation, data analytics, knowledge you have, how many people you have done, and such kind of information, how many research workshops you have conducted. So all those things can be given. So this has to be prepared in your Word file, right? Number 2, moving on to the next slide, sir. Number 2 is that most important is part B, where proposed research work for UGC STRIDE component 2, that is project details, has to be given. See, for this only, I have explained last 1 hour what is research. Now I'm going to just recollect it and make it here. So put it in a Word file, broad area of research. So what is your broad area that you have shown? Not 12 areas that you have to write. Statement of purpose, 500 to 800 words. That is the only word limit in UGC STRIDE. Remaining you can write as such you like. So statement of purpose, that is the abstract of your proposal, that you write it at the end after completing all these 9 items. Then you have to write your project title. Do you remember what is the project title we have discussed? Online teaching and learning for effective student-teacher relationship. Title done. Introduction. In the introduction, how you got this idea. For example, you can write, in the pandemic situation, all were shut down and everybody was made to sit in the home and to safeguard ourselves against COVID-19. But in between, we need to also think of the student-teacher relationship and their career and other things. So that made us to frame this topic. And most of us go with technology. And then you have to write transdisciplinary relevance. How this is going to help. If you create a model on this, this will help any discipline, whether it is English, Tamil, mathematics, physics, chemistry, commerce, history, philosophy, sociology, any discipline. So it is the transdisciplinary relevance, multidisciplinary relevance. And the next one is societal relevance. How this your research is going to be socially relevant. Write down 100 words on it. How it is going to help the society. How to, maybe they will come to understand that how online interaction is more important. Okay. Then relevance to national missions and priority. Write 100 words on it. So how far it is going to be relevant for the national policy, that you have to mention here. And review of research and development in the subject. Where review of literature, I told you, na? So you have to write international status reviews, national reviews. If you are going to write international reviews, write it from different countries. Don't write it from one single country. Across the countries or continents or world, and nationals also across India, try to write it. So once you write it, you will find the research gap. No, that research gap you write it in the significance of the study as per in this format. So I have discussed with you in the first part. I've discussed with the general research. Why? Because any research agency will come out with different formats, but information is same. The jargon will be different. So you have to take it and write it there. And the 5th one is objectives. Just now we framed in 3 objectives. So you can write 3 objectives or 5 objectives. Then whatever methodology we have decided, that you can write elaborately here. Then the other thing is that year-wise plan of work and targets to achieve. I have given it in the next slide. I will discuss that. Because in these 3 years of project, what are the things you are going to do and what are the things you are going to achieve? I have given it. Then details of collaboration. If you have details of collaboration with government, industry or NGO, that you have to mention in 100 words. And finally, expected outcomes and outputs and outcomes. What they are asking, you know, whether you are going to bring any articles, whether you are going to conduct any seminars, whether you are going to conduct any database or bring out any database, whether you are going to create any what you call as books, whether you are going to bring any policy reports. So what is your outcome? That is what they are asking. So in the proposal, say after the research, I will bring a policy report. I'll bring a book. I'll bring a research article, 5 research articles. I'll conduct 2 or 3 seminars or conferences. I'll conduct workshops. Like that, you have to mention. And for that also, they are giving funding in between. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. So those are the 9 components that you have to write it with 100 or 200 words applicable to your discipline. And the next thing is that that 7th item, I told year-wise plan. Most many before when I conducted workshops or FDPs, they were asking, sir, how to write year-wise plan. I thought I can bring it to you. So it is for 3 years. Now in the first column I have mentioned first year, second year and third year. In the second I have mentioned plan of work. What is the plan of work I'm going to do? And the last, what is the target to be achieved? In the first year, maybe we can discuss with the experts, collaboration with the research institutes, and we can make a literature review, confirmation of the research design. In the first year we can do that. And it is a confirmation of the research design we can do, that means preparatory work that we can complete in first year. Second year, we will go for confirmation of data collection tool, completion of data collection, analysis. So collection of data collection of data and analysis, that is execution of research we can do. And the third year, we can go for drafting of the report, review of the report with experts, preparation of the final report which has to be sent to the UGC. That we can make it up in the third. So this is a general thing which I have prepared for my project. If you want, you can adopt it, or you can rewrite according to your convenience, right? And moving on to the next slide. Now we have prepared the proposal. Sorry. Most important thing is that the budget which they are looking for the project, because they are going to give around 50 lakhs if you are not going to collaborate. If you are going to collaborate, 1 crore. So please understand, in component 2, any individual can get it, which comes under those college, right? Regular faculty with colleges of having the 12B status. 12. So financial assistance required item estimated expenditure. They are not a budget. This is a thing which they have given it in their site, and 7 items they are asking: heads, project fellow, hiring charge, services, field work and travel, contingency, honorarium, books and journals, equipment. So now what you have to do is calculate for 3 years how much money you want. So total amount you calculate, put it on the grand total column, okay, and then you fill up the how much amount you want for all these heads in the last total column. Then you split up that to 3 years. In some years it may not be required also. So if you come in the reverse way, you can fill the project budget very clearly. If you fill it and go on totally, it may go more also. So first roughly you prepare it, how much you require for each case. From there you put year 1, year 2, year 3. So that way if you do it, then ultimately project thing will be ready. So now please understand, before you apply for UGC Stride, go and download the guidelines, understand this whatever I have said. If I missed anything, please read it once again. Time to time it may get changed also. Maybe in the next time there may be slight changes may happen. So ultimately you should have a what you call it as the investigator profile and a detailed profile in PDF, and the other one is the budget, the proposal with budget, part A and part B. If you have it, then you are ready to go for submission. Sir, moving on to the next important slide. Yeah. So, sir, I'm going to stay for some time. Please click one by one based on my thing. There are 12 points into that, whereby people can understand very clearly, and you can zoom it and see. See, Stride. Now we have understood how to prepare. Preparation for UGC Stride. Now, how to apply online? The UGC Stride is totally applied online. So, what to do that? The first thing is that submission protocol. Next, sir, submission protocol. We can go for log on to Stride website. First step is log on to Stride website. http stride.bhu.ac.in. If you log on to that, then you can download the format of project proposal and endorsement certificate. I told now you have to send a forwarding letter from your registrar or principal. In UGC side, it is called as endorsement certificate, EC, endorsement certificate. Once you download this application and endorsement certificate, keep in your system. Then, sir, next step. Next step. Yeah. So, prepare investigator profile. Prepare the part A and project proposal with budget, part B. Okay. Then you have to go for submitting your application online. Before you go for submitting your online application, prepare your profile, prepare your project profile, have the endorsement certificate, send it to your registrar if you are working in an institute, in university. Send it to your college if you are working in a college principal, if you are working there. Then they will verify, they will approve. In the endorsement, you have to sign, co-investigator has to sign, and your registrar or principal will give a approval to go ahead, approval signature in the endorsement certificate. Once they give the approval certificate, you are ready to apply. The first step is that you need to prepare and you need to get approval from your institution, forwarding. Once they give an approval, then only you are ready to apply online. So then principal investigator, or if you have a co-principal investigator, both of you has to register in that website separately. And when you register, please keep in mind these details you should have. Personal details, what they are asking, which in the application. PhD title, your PhD title. Year of completion, that's what I said. Only those people who have completed PhD can avail this facility. PhD title, year of completion, and principal investigator CV in PDF. It can run a number of pages. If you have co-principal investigator, and more important, scanned photograph. Now everybody will be having it. So if you have this and if you register with these details, then you will be getting a mail, activation mail in the mail which you are giving. The mail ID which you are giving, no, you should have a mail also. So there you have to go and you have to activate this link. Most of you have my practice now. And once you are activated, the job of the co-principal investigator is over. Now only the principal investigator with the login ID and password, the principal investigator will log in. Moving on to the next step, sir. Next step. So principal investigator will log in. Next step, sir. Principal investigator will log in, and you will be getting next two clicks, sir. So access the dashboard. Yeah. Okay. Access the dashboard, and once you access the dashboard, the most important thing you need to do is add your co-principal investigator, giving their registered mail ID. If you give it, then your profile and principal co-investigator profile will be added into one slot. Then there is a format, and each format, just now I told you 9 things now. Each format you have to start filling. Already if you have it in Word file, just copy and paste it. Just copy and paste it over there. And once everything is ready, then you have to upload that endorsement certificate. Now that should be converted in JPEG file and it has to be uploaded in the site. Once it is uploaded, then go for a final verification from the beginning to the end. Once you are satisfied, submit it. Once you submit it, a PDF downloaded file will come in. So that means online submission is successful and a PDF file will come. Don't send it to UGC. That downloaded PDF file is for your reference. So ultimately, when you do that, then you have applied online. Moving on to the next slide, sir. Yeah. So now you have submitted, na? So what is the research proposal appraisal process that UGC is doing? Submission of the research proposal online done. Then they will take some time. The time period is taken by the authority, and they will shortlist based on certain criteria, which I told you already. They'll be looking for fund, whether it is novel, innovative, whether it is utility, it has an utility value, that is it is useful to people and society and policymakers, whether it is feasible. So they'll be looking on whether nationally significant, locally needed. So all those they'll be looking on, and they will shortlist your project. Once it is shortlisted, then they'll be calling you for presentation. Now it may be an in-person presentation or interview or online presentation also. Probably they may look for you in a Skype, which normally they are doing it. So this is what it happens. Moving on to the next slide. Once you are called for the interview, what they'll be looking for? They'll be looking for your research knowledge. They'll be looking for your domain knowledge. They'll be looking for your analytical skill, whether you know statistical tools, you know packages, how you do it. Research experience, they'll be checking your research experience. They'll be checking your project experience, most important. They'll be checking your project experience. If you have already a project, they'll be looking your publications. So these are the things which they'll be looking on. If all are satisfied, then your project will get sanctioned. And whenever in the interview, small tip which I want to give you, if they allow you to go for a presentation of PowerPoint in a crispy way, present it clearly. Present your title, your objectives, your hypotheses, your methodology, your chapter design, and all other nonsenses very clearly. And sometimes they may ask you to revise your budget also, so you can revise your budget. So that also you can do. You can revise your budget, and beyond that, please show your research attitude in the form of your proposal as well as in the interview. So surely you will get sanctioned. So moving on to the next final slide. See, till now I was telling you what is the research, how to prepare UGC stride project proposal, how to submit. But if you want to practically start, I have an idea to tell you. Every time we listen everything, but we may not do it. My humble request to all the participants in Zoom and the YouTube live is that I have come out with a novel idea or a little idea that I have generated. I cannot call you a novel, a little idea I have generated. For doing a project or a research, we prepare project proposal. To prepare a project proposal, what to do, sir? I have created a small thing called as pre-research proposal, pre-RP, Dr. Vam's pre-RP. That is the first step to prepare the research proposal. My humble request is take one piece of paper. Whenever you get an idea, think of it, work on it. When you confirm your title, write the title. Then 3 to 5 objectives, write down it based on your title. Then based on the title and the objective, write down or type down the methodology which I have told you. The PPT also available, you can get it. So methodology also you can write it point by point. Then the chapter design. It will come one page, even if you write it in hand, even you write it in your or draft it in your MS Word, or even you can take your mobile and in the notepad on the move you can write, because a lot of ideas comes on the move, but don't get idea while riding your bike, riding your car. If you are sitting in a bus or in a train or a flight, so you can get it. So first what you do is, in a thinking sense, first prepare the title, the objectives, methodology and chapter design. Then if you elaborate like a proposal, then it will be easy. For example, whenever I get an idea, I prepare this for pre-research proposal, PRP, and I have n number of things. Whenever it comes in, I try to apply. Move on to the next slide, sir. And whenever you want to write any research proposal, I want to give you 12 tips. First of all, know yourself. What is your confidence level in research? Update your research. If you are confident enough, then you can start working on it. And know the funding agency from which you are going to seek. Now I have explained only UGC stride, and that too only one scheme. UGC also gives funding for many other processes. Fellowship they are giving it, scholarship they are giving it, they are giving what you call it as postdoctoral fellowship. They have come out, even senior research fellowship they are giving it, seminars and conferences they are funding it. So you need to understand that. Read the notification and announcement clearly, because don't always look for an expert opinion or somebody who tells you. Sometimes they may change a few nuances later. Every year, look for it. Formulate an appropriate research objective. That is more important. Develop a viable research proposal. More important is preparing proposal is easy, but whether it is scientific, whether it is viable, that you have to prepare. State your research objective clearly in your proposal. That is more important. Frame your study around the work of others. Whenever you write, substantiate so and so from so and so country has said this. I'm working on it. Grammar and spelling count, and format and brevity are important. How you write it, format they are giving it, how briefly you write it. Know the review process, just now I explained. Proofread your proposal before you submit. That's more important. And submit your proposal on time. Don't drag on to the last date of submission. Please do it. For example, if you are eligible, prepare it from now. Have it in your hand. Once the call comes in, you can apply immediately. But if you are working in a private college, if you are working in a what you call it a self-financing mode, please wait for your turn. Or there may be some changes may happen. Your college may get into 12B status, then you can work on. If you're a PhD scholar now, please learn all these things, all the skills now. Immediately when you get your job in a regular mode or with these colleges or universities, you can immediately apply. So it is not that I'm not eligible now, so why should I do? Prepare your mind now. I started thinking research 17 years back. So I have completed one research project, and we are sent to two research projects, and it is in the pipeline, right? So moving on to the last slide, sir, conclusion slide. I think it's almost 1.5 hours. We started at 4 o'clock, and it's going to be 5:30. So to conclude, to refresh the live viewers from Zoom and YouTube Live, we have discussed about research, we have discussed about UGC stride, and we discussed about proposal, and we discussed about how to prepare the proposal and how to submit online on time. And please understand, research never ends. Researcher has to end it. Please understand that. Because if you keep on thinking about research, it will be like a dream. So make a full stop, draft it wherever they are, and you can do it. And please remember, Dr. Vam's, fun approach for scientific research. That is novelty, utility, and feasibility. Whenever you write it in a paper today, please try. Please try, take one scheme which is related to you in the UGC stride. Write down and check it out. Or if you want, send a mail to the organizers. They'll be also happy. I request all the what you call as participants to write at least one page with all these four title, objectives, methodology, and the chapter design. Write one page. Just scan it and send it to organizer mail. The more number of proposals they get, they'll be happy for doing this program. And please understand, novelty, utility, and feasibility of Dr. Vam's fun approach for scientific research is always will help you to identify a better project for funding agencies. And my thing is that the concluding remark is that doing research is fun. Just do it. So thanks a lot to the sir. I'm moving on to the next slide, sir. Last slide. So you can keep the last slide, whereby my email ID and mobile number will be viewable to everyone. The next slide. So thanks a lot, especially to the administration, the management of JP College, and especially Madam Nisha Madam, and my dear good friend Dinesh, young and energetic, young leader of the world. I can say that Dinesh, who has been coordinating this, what you call as, in a better way with a lot of. Already I have done a program with him, and this is a second program with him, and I'm very happy to collaborate with the foundation. Thanks a lot for all your technical support, Dinesh, and thanks a lot, Madam, for coordinating this. And I'm so happy because I used to come. I was there 3.5 years in Tirunelveli. Used to visit Tenkasi and Kuttalam all the way every weekend. But fortunate that every year I used to turn around. In the pandemic situation, also you have taken my video to the to my own good friends and everyone. What you call it as in that area. So thanks a lot to all the participants, the organizers, and the technical team, expert Dinesh, for giving a wonderful opportunity to meet young researchers, especially Audacious Dreams Foundation. All the best for your future endeavors. All the best for all the researchers, and especially to the college management and the coordinator and the Department of English of JP College. So with this note, I will wind up my discussion. If anybody is having a question, I'm ready to answer. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Arul Murugan, for making your as well as always an energetic stuff. So it shows your experience in the field. So we read your profile that you have a lot of experience for the last 17 plus years. So you've been guiding a lot of students, faculties on the research projects. So we can able to, and we also awarded with a lot of research and funding activities. So thank you so much for the non-stop 1.5 hour power-packed Diwali. So crackers kind of presentation. So thank you so much. So we're just glad that JP College of Arts and Science has taken an initiative to host Dr. Arul Murugan. And thanks for accepting our invitation. And on behalf of Audacious Dreams Foundation and JP College of Arts and Science, and on behalf of all the viewers, so we are happy, and we are extending our warm thank you for making this session beautiful. And we have a lot of questions had been posted in the YouTube. So I can just, the faculties can choose few, and I can also choose few questions. So I'll just choose few questions to post to you. If the faculties are ready, you can also start asking the questions.
Yeah, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So there is a question from the viewer. It is, if the research article is rejected by one journal, can we publish it in another journal? Is it valuable? This is a question.
Yes, madam, I'll answer for that. So, for example, if you are preparing a research article, maybe you'll be having your own idea, your own thinking, and you prepare in your own format. But when you are sending to a research journal, please understand, every journal will not accept every theme. That we need to be very clear. And it will not accept every format. So there are some journals which accept APA format. There are some journals which accept MLA format. There are some journals which accept different formats. Even they give their own what you call as formats nowadays. Even that PDP work is given to the researcher. Now it is not done by the publisher. So one more thing is that before we send, why we get rejected, that we need to know. There are few reasons. When you are sending our research article to your journal, please make sure that whether a theme of our article is relevant to that journal. That is more important. You cannot send it to every journal. That may be the reason why it is getting rejected. Number two, there may be some kind of what you call as differences or scientific thinking and doing may be missing. We need to verify. So once if it is getting rejected, surely the publication will not simply reject you. They will tell you why they are rejecting it. If they say why they are rejecting it, then you will have a list of things to do. Again, you can rework that with your research article. Then find out, please find out relevant journals. That is more important. Find out the relevant journals and then you send it, whereby it will get accepted. Now, once it is rejected, then we can go for applying or sending to other. If it is in pipeline, we should not send it. Then it will lead to plagiarism. Is it okay, madam?
Okay, sir. Thank you. The next question is, when we do thesis presentation, I always see people read the reports. Is there any ways to do better presentation?
It usually happens. If the researcher is doing a research by themselves, for example, minimum 2 years, 3 years we are taking. If the researcher is doing themselves, is it necessary to read the thesis? Please understand. Because everything is in the mind and heart if you dedicatedly do it. And in my opinion, rather than reading the thesis, you can have a pointed information in the PowerPoint, put it for the support in a presentation, and always you explain behind the lines, between the lines, show only data and you explain it. So less information to be shown and explanation should be more. If you make it that way, then you will not have any problem. Even I don't agree to read the content of the what you call as research report in the public voice examination.
Thank you.
Yes, madam.
Thank you, doctor. And we have another question. It's what is 12B status? Is it applicable to private colleges?
Yeah. 2F is normally given to universities and state universities, and the 12B status is given to colleges, private colleges. But the private college should apply to UGC to get that status. I don't know how many colleges has applied. You have to apply. There is a format. If you get into the UGC guidelines, there is a guideline that any private colleges which are registered can apply for 12B status. There are certain criteria and you need to fill all those criteria. Then only the UGC will send that your proposal for getting 12B status. Why 12B status? First, I will tell you that. If you want to get funding from government agencies like ICSSR or UGC or any other agencies, your college should have 12B status. That means the facilities of research. That is what they are looking for. So we need to, there is a format, there is a criteria, there is a standard which they are looking for. If any college has that, please, anybody who is representing a college, if your college not yet got 12B status, go to UGC website, download the application and the guidelines, read it, help your college, fill everything if you are able to fill. If not, conduct that and fill it. Once it is ready, send it to the UGC. They will send it to the expert committee. And once the expert committee approves that your college is under the 12B status, then the faculties in your institution or your institution can go for funding.
Thank you, doctor. And the next question is, please mention the research project the unaided staff can apply or not.
That's what I said, no? The most important thing is that regular faculty, there are two components in that. one, the institution should come under the 12B status and 12. And number two, if you are working in a 12B status college under unaided or self-financing, then you cannot apply. You should become a regular faculty. Then only you can apply as per norms at present. Maybe they may get relaxed a little later. I'm not sure on it.
So is the UGC Stride project is around the year or any deadline on?
No, yeah. See, UGC Stride is only based on a notification. They go for a call. So they will go for a notification, maybe a month, they'll give a time, then they'll close it. So it goes on the period. There's a minor major project given by UGC, which is you can send it across anytime. But UGC Stride, it goes on a specific notification. There is a starting date, there is the end date on online application. Okay. So that is what I'm saying. No, now everything is clear. So you prepare and keep it. Once the date comes in, you can apply. I do have 3 or 4 in my pipeline. So once it comes in, I'll apply for the next time.
Yeah, thank you. So is there any professors over here who would like to ask a question? You can just go ahead.
Yes, sir. Very good evening to all.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Sir, this is a question from one of the audience. Now I am here to dictate before you. Sir, kindly explain snowball technique.
Okay. Sir, snowball sampling technique is one of the non-probability sampling technique. That means when we are not aware of the population, the whole population, in the sense for our study. For example, if you want to conduct the likers of ice cream in the world, do you know how many people are likers of the ice cream to whom you will be asking? So that means that it is very difficult. The same way in the pandemic situation. For example, in the COVID-19 situation, we don't know how many of them, unless otherwise they are tested. We are not aware whether they are the COVID affected patient or not. So if you get one symptomatic patient, then we check it, and then we'll ask the history of that person, whom he has a contact, because the WHO has identified that it is spreading through the droplets of the what you call it as the saliva of a person, human to human. So through them we'll be getting it. So snowball sampling is such a kind that, for example, in the glacier there is a balls, ice balls in the Himalaya. One ball will roll around, hit the another ball, and the other ball will move. This ball will stay in that space. It will go and hit. It is just like you identify one person, and through them you identify another person, another person. This is normally used. Snowball sampling technique is normally used when the what you call it as the population is unknown, and even the sample is very less. We are unable to find. So through each sample we can find out. Is it clear, sir?
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable suggestion. Next, there is a question from a valuable gentleman. What is the limit of financial assistance and time limit by UGC if I wish to pursue major research in the field of English literature?
Sir, it doesn't look into any subject. All the science and social science subjects, just now I explained, if they are going with UGC Stride component 2, the maximum period which is given is 3 years and the maximum amount is 50 lakhs. Just now I explained in my presentation. And if the principal investigator is going to have a collaborative MOU or collaboration with the NGOs or industries or corporates or government bodies, then we have an upper limit of 1 crore.
So thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, sir. And if there is a same question related with the 12B stuff. So if
Okay.
12B no 12B college and not in a regular staff, is there any possibility of applying for any other minor projects?
Yes, sir. What is happening is like there are the institution is getting 1 crore, no? So from that institution, they will give it to nearby colleges and areas where in that they can apply for a small money, seed money. Even in my opinion, what I suggest if any colleges want to go for 12B status, I think they have to show some of the research capability. So what the colleges can do is they can give a smaller amount as a seed money project. For example, when I was working in Manoman M. Sundarnar University, I got the seed money project of 25,000 from the university. And when we did, unfortunately, I couldn't complete because I shifted to another university in between. So I have to submit and come back. So the institution can initiate seed money projects for such kind of young research teachers.
Yeah. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And is there any other questions from the teachers?
So there is a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, madam.
Whether JRF net is compulsory for UGC projects.
No, madam, only PhD is compulsory. Whether even if you have UGC NET and SET to apply for UGC research projects, they are looking for PhD. But in ICSSR, I'll add on ICSSR, if you want to apply, if you are going to be a principal director, that is the first person, PhD is must. But if you are going to be a co-principal investigator or co-project director, if you are going to be a second person or a third person, PhD is not a must.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Sir,
you.
can you able to highlight on the postdoctoral fellowship or postdoctoral activities, how to do that? So someone is asking.
Yeah. Well, now even what do you call it as ICSSR has come out with a notification now for postdoctoral fellowship and senior fellowship. I think by looking into that only they are asking, I suppose. Sir, postdoctoral fellowship is done after completing our PhD degree. It is one more degree of a research degree. Like after completing PG, we will be doing pre-doctoral degree, that is MPhil. Then we'll be doing a PhD. After doing a PhD, we can go for a postdoctoral degree. Usually, postdoctoral degree is done with a in-depth knowledge. So very deep knowledge into that. And in India, postdoctoral degree was not done in India before. It was done in the foreign countries where there are a lot of scholarship. Once you go there, you will be given a scholarship to do. That is why it is called as PDF, postdoctoral fellowship. And it was given like Commonwealth fellowship. We had a Fulbright scholarship. We had Raman fellowship by UGC. So that means if you go to US, if you are going to UK, then the scholarship was given. Recently, Indian UGC also come out with the postdoctoral fellowship, and they are giving it now. And that means that once you have completed your PhD, then you are eligible to do postdoctoral degree. There is an age limit and there is a certain criteria. All those things are there. You can check it out. So after completing PhD only, you can do postdoctoral degree. In my opinion, like it's a kind of add-on. It's a kind of add-on. Nothing is going. It's a kind of add-on to your knowledge. But if anybody has completed PhD, maybe if you are looking for teaching, still you have not got a job and you are waiting it, my humble request is apply for it. Maybe please look onto the ICSSR notification. Now you can apply on a regular mode. You will be, it is just like in another PhD, you will be doing it, but it will be an in-depth area.
So can you just explain about multidisciplinary proposal? How can we collaborate with other department professors?
So that is what I'm saying. Now, any research proposal of UGC or ICSSR, it is not looking from only one person. It is looking from minimum one, maximum 3 persons. So what you can do is, one person, the first person can be from one field, other 2 persons can be from other field. So 3 departments in one institution can collaborate, or 3 persons from different institution also can collaborate. Okay. So for example, if you want to understand, just now I was saying, no, online teaching and learning. Maybe a computer science faculty can take a lead and online teaching and learning for a subject. Maybe an English teacher can join or a Tamil literature teacher can join. So online teaching and learning for literature courses. So one computer science faculty, one Tamil literature, one English literature, they can join and do that. Like that, there are so many. I have joined with a computer science faculty, and I'm working on the skill skill enrichment model for engineering students. I have just worked on a project. I have sent it.
Thank you, Dr. Arul Murugan. And is there any other questions from the participant audience?
So there is a question.
Yeah.
Can we apply for major or minor projects at any time?
Yeah, anytime you can apply, but it will be scrutinized in a in a collective manner only. But you can apply at any time, major, minor, anytime. at UGC Stride and ICSSR Impress, it is in the denoted time.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
So any other questions? For English literature, what kind of analytical research can be done in ELA data collection is possible? In literature, what shall we do? If you apply theory and do research proposals are not accepted.
No, see, every discipline we cannot say that an analytical component should be there in the research, right? Each discipline has their own methodology of doing research. I've just said the maximum methodology of analytical angle, but there are research which we can do it in a qualitative angle also. For example, content analysis. Usually in English literature, they take up the write-ups of the people and they will work out on the style and how it is working out. Maybe you can even do primary data also. For example, you can collect data from Shakespeare's reading. So you can find out the readers of Shakespeare writings, and you can draft a questionnaire, and you can collect the data, and you can do some analysis and show them. That is possible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Dinesh sir?
Yes, sir. So is there any other queries?
Yeah.
If no queries, we can just close down the session
Yeah,
with the
that's what
closing
I'm
remarks. So is there any other session? I think no questions, I guess. So what is the timeline for minor research project?
What is it?
Is there any timeline for minor research project?
1 year, sir. 1 year. 1 year.
1 year. Okay, sir. Fine. Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Arul Murugan, and it was a beautiful hosting you again. So we feel comfortable and comfortable partnerships and comfortable sharing session. And thank you, JP College of Arts and Science, for hosting the session and inviting us to be a partner for the session to provide technical support and also the mobilization support. So, and thank you, thank you, Administrator Reverend Sister Alangaram, for doing the opening remarks, and Sahaya Shantinisha, the head of the department, for collaborating and leading the program from your college end. And thank you, Professor Kamala Bharati, for introducing the resource person. And now I like to hand over the session to Professor Mahesh Raja to deliver a vote of thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to everyone.
So before vote of thanks, we'll just give a small instructions. And those who have been registered for the certifications, you will be receiving your certifications in 7 working days. And the presentation will be shared to those who applied for the registration. So it will be shared with that. And the feedback forms or all the certification will be shared to your mail ID. So thank you so much. And thanks for watching our channel. Do subscribe and press the bell button for the channel so that you will receive further updates on a regular basis, so that we are hosting regular sessions. And if anyone would like to work on entrepreneurship, so we are hosting a program with MSME, Micro, Small, Medium in National Institute tomorrow and day after tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. onwards. So please join us. And it's over to Mr. Mahesh Raja for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Dinesh sir. It's my privilege to deliver vote of thanks. I would like to thank Reverend Sister Alangaram, the administrator of JP College of Arts and Science. She has given immense support. She has always given us full freedom to conduct such programs. Thank you, sister. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. S.L. Rayar, for his continuous support, his motivation, and his never say die attitude. I would like to thank our Vice Principal, Shankar sir, and I would like to thank our Arun Murugan University for his. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please proceed, sir. Yeah, it's audible, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Arun Murugan sir, for his accepting our invitation and delivering such wonderful lecture. Sir, we like the lecture. It was enthusing, and it has it has clear detail in a simple way. And then I would like to thank our Dinesh sir, Catalyst and Executive Director of Audacious Dreams Foundation for arranging such a good program. I just called him on phone. He, in the first call itself, he spoke to us about the program, how to arrange, how to fix, how to conduct, and that kind of guidelines he has given to us. Working with him is very simple and comfortable. He's like a celebrity to me, a youth icon, I would say. And I'd like to thank our entire team of JP College of Arts and Science. And last but not least, I would like to thank the participants for their active participation and continuous support. We would like to conduct some more webinars, and I request all of you to participate in those also. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Mahesh Raja, for hosting the session and for delivering the thank you, and thanks for calling. So it's a group and community effort. So it's a community effort and a joint effort by all the people, and special thanks to your college for doing such sessions. So it be because of your college administration and because of the people and because of the resource persons like Dr. Arul Murugan, who were accepted on the same day. So it was possible. So thank you so much for everyone who's been a part of this amazing session. So thank you so much. All the best and best wishes. And please stay in our channel for some more programs in the coming days, and looking forward to host some more programs with your college. So in future. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Dinesh. All the best. Keep going.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, doctor. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm leaving. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.